It's Brian and Pam.
Thank you, Cheshire Voice singers, sounding as good as ever, even while wearing masks. Hello, it's Pam Landry back with Brian Smith for the Podcast Not a Podcast, episode 40, the quarantine edition. Just like that, it's July. The summer of weirdness continues. Most organized 4th of July fireworks displays have been canceled this year. So right now, the state of Connecticut is in phase 2. Since the last episode of this Podcast Not a Podcast quarantine edition, I got my hair cut. And the salon that I go to, also known in Brian Smith's world as a beauty parlor, seemed to be doing everything right. I had to sign a waiver. They took my temperature. There were only a few people getting their hair cut at the same time. The stations were very far apart, and all the folks working at the salon not only had masks on, but they had those plastic shields. So all in all, I felt pretty safe. Now, Governor Lamont is talking about Phase 3 happening sometime this month. Phase 3 would include opening bars and clubs. It would include opening up indoor event spaces and venues to crowds of 100 people or less, also opening indoor amusement parks and arcades, and allowing outdoor events of up to 100 people. However, there's some questions as to whether that's actually going to happen, because in many places around the country, COVID-19 infections and deaths are on the rise again. So, Brian Smith, I think right now the best thing, and really the thing that everyone should be doing, wear a face covering and wash your hands. That is pretty much all that is being asked of us. In addition, of course, to social distancing. Sure, this is all an inconvenience, but it's certainly a lot less than the folks on the front lines have been dealing with for months and months and months. Oh, and the state has also announced a plan for kids to go back to school this fall. Brian Smith, how is your summer of weirdness going?
Well, Pam Landry, my summer of weirdness has been, let me see, what's the right word I'm looking for? Hold on, let me think. Wording is very important in our business. I've got it. My summer of weirdness has been very weird. It's been mostly weird without baseball on television, and I'm serious about this. I use sports, especially baseball, as escapism in the worst way. When I have a lot of things to do on a summer day, and there's baseball on, I'm on the couch with snacks and something to drink, and I'm doing something. I'm rooting for my team. Maybe I'm not out cleaning my car. Maybe I'm not out paying my bills at my desk or showering, but I'm doing something. I'm rooting for my team, and especially watching those beer commercials. Because watching those beer commercials makes a lot of money for the TV people, and especially the baseball players and the baseball team owners. So bring on the baseball. There's a lot of rich people who want to get richer, and there's a lot of things I don't want to do, like clean out my car, pay the bills, and shower. I am bummed about the cancellations, though, Pam Landry. One of the most recent ones is the Big E has been canceled for only the third time in its history. First time was during World War I, and then it got canceled in World War II, and now we've got the worldwide COVID, otherwise known in this country as the mask wars. I like what you said, too, about the organized fireworks have been canceled, meaning that somewhere, somehow, through this entire month of July, you may just hear the occasional loud pop of a salute, or maybe the sparkly fizzle of a bottle rocket illuminating the sky. But most likely, you're going to hear the teeth-rattling explosion of a quarter stick going off at 3 o'clock in the morning in the middle of your street, and probably more than one. But here we are, still in phase 2. I'm happy I can shower again. I'm kind of looking forward to the next phase, when we can use the indoor bathrooms again, although that's been kind of fun. My neighbors hate it. And Pam Landry, I'm glad during this phase 2 you had a chance to go back to the beauty parlor and do whatever ladies do in there. I know it's all scissors and lotions and powders and those big domed hair dryers that you sit under, and it looks like you're trying to read somebody's mind in California. So, Pam, phase 3 is next. Do you have any plans for that?
My plans for phase 3, Brian Smith? Well, this just in. They will not include going to bars. Not that I was going to do that anyway, but the governor has decided to delay the opening of bars. That decision based on the fact that across the country, COVID-19 cases are rising, and apparently many are being traced back to overcrowded bars. Anyway, my plans for Phase 3, Brian Smith, probably not much different than what my plans were for Phase 1 and 2, which were to stay healthy, stay sane-ish, try to keep my bills paid, and hoping to get back to work and earn some money so I can pay those aforementioned bills. And, of course, to win the lottery. Oh, and hopefully watch what will be the 2020 Major League Baseball season. At this point, that season is set to begin later this month. But, Brian Smith, I will actually believe it is so when I see Jacob deGrom take the mound at Citi Field.
Yeah, me too. You know, I had a cousin once who took the mound at Yankee Stadium. It was midnight, and he and his buddies had shovels, a wheelbarrow, and a pickup truck. Yeah, they didn't serve too much time. Yes, play ball, Pam Landry. No arguing, though. No high-fiving. No spitting tobacco juice or sunflower seeds. Hardly baseball in my scorebook, Pam. But bring it on. Maybe the players can just wave a white hanky and say, "Jolly good, old man. I really enjoyed the way you fired that fastball at that batter's head. Almost knocked him down, you did. Jolly good. Now let's have some fisticuffs over Zoom." Let's talk about Phase 3, Pam Landry. None too soon. I, for one, can't wait to eat peanut butter right out of the jar again, or take a right turn on a red light. I forgot what that was like. And I could finally get change for $1 anywhere. And let's not forget, it's a lot easier to find a public bathroom right now when you go out. Thank you, restaurants and businesses. But these have been tough times for restaurants, businesses, statues, and old men who like to stand very still. Yes, Pam, rough times for this podcast, not a podcast as well, because we talk about topical subjects here, and the topical climate has been changing minute to minute. But if you, not you, well, if you, Pam Landry, but if you, dear listener, have some questions or some news about restaurants that have maybe closed in Southern Connecticut, or businesses that have shut down, or better yet, restaurants and businesses that are open and hiring, let us know. You can now email us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at icecreamsodact@gmail.com.
Thank you, Brian Smith. And what were you just saying about the climate being so changeable? Kind of like the weather in New England. Wait a half hour and it will change. Well, that's how the state's reopening plans are going as well. I call it a fluid climate. So, Brian Smith, what am I talking about? Well, this just in. Not so fast on Phase 3. Governor Lamont has suspended Phase 3 of Connecticut's reopening plan as the COVID-19 coronavirus continues moving through states that were initially spared the worst part of the viral infection. So what does this mean, Brian Smith? Well, I'm glad you asked. It means private gatherings will remain at 25 people inside and 100 people outside. As I already mentioned, bars will stay closed. Also, indoor dining at restaurants will stay at 50% capacity. Gyms will stay at 50% capacity. Large entertainment venues, including racetracks, will remain at 25% capacity. And Brian Smith, Governor Lamont, has not offered, as of right now, right this minute, as I'm talking to you, a new date for the introduction of Phase 3, which was originally supposed to be July 20th. But Brian Smith, the good news? Yes, you can still eat peanut butter from a jar, just don't share that jar. You can still take a ride on red, and you can still get change for $1. And Brian Smith, let me just say that doing these Podcast Not a Podcast quarantine edition has been especially challenging because we've obviously been recording over the course of several days, as opposed to the way we used to do it pre-COVID. So it's really hard to keep up. For instance, 4th of July is now in the past. But one thing that does remain consistent, Brian Smith, our email address, as you mentioned, icecreamsodact@gmail.com. And please make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. And Brian Smith, I feel like we have to hurry up and finish this edition of the Podcast Not a Podcast Quarantine Edition, episode 40, before something else changes.
Yes, well, I know what you mean, Pam Landry. With politics, civil upheaval, and pandemic news changing far faster than your average neighbor changes their underwear, you know we've got trouble. So let's finish up while we can and get ready for our next podcast, Not a Podcast. A big thank you to Holly, our social media guru.
Yes, thank you, Holly. And Brian, I don't know how often my neighbors change their underwear, nor do I want to know that information. But our email address, reach out to us. Tell us how often you change your underwear. No, please don't. Just get in touch. icecreamsodact@gmail.com. And make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Brian Smith? I guess that's it for now.
Is that it? Are we done? I shut off everything around my studio bunker to make it quiet. So if we're done, I'm going to go turn my refrigerator and my dehumidifier back on. Thank you, Pam Landry. Goodbye.